In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the thermostat housing on this BMW 325xi. This is going to be located in the front of the engine. Let's get into it. Underneath the vehicle, there may be a shield right here. You're going to have to remove that if there's some fasteners or some push pins. You want to pop those out, take that cover off. This vehicle doesn't have it. Then you can see where the radiator is right here, more on the left side of the vehicle. And we're gonna loosen up this drain. I'm just gonna use a straight blade screwdriver. Make sure you have a drain bucket underneath. And make sure the engine is cool. You don't want hot coolant coming out. Just pull the drain plug out and let it drain. We're going to take the cap off, then it's going to be easier for the coolant to drain out. Just put the cap back on. Most of the coolant came out. That's good. I'm going to put the drain plug back in, and we'll snug this up. Not too tight, just snug. We're going to remove this cover. I'm just going to use a trim tool, take these push pins out. There's one more right there. Grab that cover, just slide that out. Disconnect the connector for the mass airflow sensor and just push down on the tab, slide that off. Using a straight blade screwdriver, loosen up the worm clamp. Make sure that snorkel's loose. You can pop that off. Take these two bolts out. Use a 10mm socket. I'm going to grab the box, slide it up, and it pulls right out. On the fan shroud, there's a push pin right here. We're just going to use a trim tool. Just pop that out. Pop the push pin out. We're going to disconnect this box right here. Just push down on the connector. Disconnect that, slide that out of the way. This connector right here, we're just going to grab the connector, pull it up. There may be a lock tab under there. Should be able to pull it up and slide it out of the way. You don't have to disconnect it. Just like that. We're going to take this screw out. Use a T25 socket. Take that out. Now you can see the fan shroud is loose, but the fan is in the way, so we're going to take that off next. Now we're going to use a fan clutch removing tool. This is a 32mm. Go right there on the fan clutch. Get that lined up. And this fan clutch is reverse thread, so you actually want to almost, it's going to feel like you're tightening it, but that's how you loosen it. That's it. That's how you loosen it. Now you're turning it clockwise to get it out. I'm trying to prevent having it fall. I don't really want it to fall into the radiator. Almost there. There we go. The fan and the housing come out together. I'll disconnect this connector right here. Just push down on the tab, slide that out of the way. We're going for this pipe next. Make sure you have a drain bucket underneath And there's a little clip right there. Just take a straight blade screwdriver, pop this clip out. You can either just leave it like that in service position, or you could take it off completely, get it out of the way. You can put it back on after. And just rock this off. There you go. Not really any coolant came out of there. Pop this hose off over here, straight blade screwdriver. Pop this off. And slide it off. There we go, a little bit of coolant. And just move that out of the way. Taking this bracket off, we're going to use a 11mm socket. Take this nut off. Then down here, we're going to use a 13mm socket. Take this bolt out. This bracket is just going to be loose like this. We're not taking that off completely, but that's going to be out of the way. We'll take this bolt out. Use a 10mm socket. There's one up top and there's two underneath. There we go. And one more. There. There we go. Those are the bolts. Now we're going to pull the thermostat off. Just grab it. There we go. A little bit of coolant dripping out. And there it is. Take a rag and some brake parts cleaner. Just clean off the surface where the gasket goes for the thermostat housing. If you need to, if there's some more debris on there, you can use a scraper or even a wire brush if you need to, if it's that bad. But looks pretty good. A little bit right there. You can use a little emery cloth or some light sandpaper. Take the new thermostat, make sure the gasket's in there, and make sure it's all aligned properly. Go underneath this bracket right here, get that lined up. Get the bolt started. Larger bolt goes up top. And the smaller bolts underneath. And tighten those down. Now I'm going to torque these smaller bolts to 80 inch-pounds. That's good. And the larger bolt is going to be 16 foot-pounds. That's good. Put this nut on. Snug that down. That's good. I'm going to get this wire connected. Go in behind here with the wire. That only connects one way, so there we go. Lock that in place. That's good. Wire's out of the way. Take the hose. We're gonna put our clip or our lock back on. It's in place. It's a good idea to replace the O-ring in here if you have one. If not, just make sure it looks pretty good. Put a little silicone on the O-ring. That's good. Slide that in place. Lock it down. Do the same on this one. The silicone. Lock it down. Now take the fan and the fan shroud. You're gonna slide these in together. Get that lined up. Just making sure it's good down below. All right. And while you're still holding the fan, you're gonna start threading this on counterclockwise. Opposite of what you'd think. There we go. Now we're going to tighten this up, the opposite of how we took it off. Just using the fan tool, I'm just going to give it a bump, nothing crazy. Just give it a, that's it. It's good enough. Now I'll put the screw back in. Tighten that down. Snug, that's good. You see the wire connector. Get that positioned. Slide that back in place, push that down. And the connector for this box here. Get that lined up, lock that in place. That's good. Take the push pin, get that lined up. Push that in place. Lock it down. Take the air box. Position that back in place. Push that down. Put the two bolts in. Tighten these down. The worm clamp, get that lined up, and we'll tighten this down. Snug that down, that's good, and connect the connector. Take this cover, slide this in place. Line up the push pins and push those down. There you go. Now we're going to top off the coolant. Take the cap off. I'm using a coolant funnel. Put an adapter on here. Right here, there's a little bleeder screw for the coolant system. I'm just going to use a straight blade screwdriver. Just take this off so you can see it better. Loosen this up. As we're adding coolant, we're going to hear air coming out of that. And if you see coolant dripping out of there, that's when you want to close that up. Okay, so that's good. Now we're going to add the coolant. Make sure it's a 50-50 mix, appropriate type of coolant. And there's different ways you can add the coolant. You can use a funnel, or you can just pour it right into the reservoir, or they even have something that will put a vacuum on the engine, and you put that in the bucket after the vacuum's on the engine, and it'll push all the coolant right into the engine. But you got to be careful with those. Sometimes on older coolant systems, if there's any type of weakness in the system, then you could end up popping one of the seals. So just be careful with those. But this funnel method tends to work pretty good. And we have a bleeder screw on this one. So. Oops. See, it's starting to come out the bleeder. So we can close that up. Close that up so it's not leaking anymore. Just let the funnel do its thing. Now we're going to start the engine with the funnel still on, with the blower speed on 1 and the heat all the way up. We're going to monitor the engine temperature, make sure it doesn't overheat. If it does, you want to shut the vehicle off, let it cool down, and start over. Now the vehicle's up to operating temperature. We're going to shut the vehicle off. Now we're going to let it cool down and adjust the coolant level accordingly. Now the engine's cool. We're just going to top this off a little bit because the level's a little lower. We just want it a little, raise it up a little bit. That's good. Put the cap back on. We can road test it, make sure everything's good. There it is. That was an easy job, and now you're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.